Jasmine, let me begin with you. It's been only 2 months since you lost your sister, and we're all very sorry for your loss and concerned about how you're doing, how you're managing the grief and carrying on.
We're doing as best we can. Of course, all of our activism is really helping us get through these tough times.
And I'm very sorry for your loss, Jasmine, and I don't want that to be missed when we get into this discussion of what happened in Congress today. And David, you've been at this for 4 years, and I'm always concerned about how you're doing with the trauma that you suffered and survived. We've talked about that privately. And what can you tell Jasmine about what the feelings are like 4 years later?
Exhausted. We work with people who have been doing this work since Sandy Hook and before. Unfortunately, there are many veterans in this movement that have been doing this work for decades. What I would say more than anything, though, is the importance of having community to know that Jasmine's not alone. I know that I'm not alone because Jasmine's here. And both unfortunately and fortunately, the movement is very large. And none of us have to be doing this work 24/7 because there's always somebody else out there fighting right now.
Jasmine, what was your impression of the way Washington deals with this after what you saw today?
Seeing everybody's reactions to the video or to testimony, you can tell who was genuine and who wasn't. You can tell who cared and who didn't about what was going on.
Let's listen to a moment where Chair Maloney spoke to these gun manufacturers. Let's listen to this.
Will you accept personal responsibility for your company's role in this tragedy and apologize to the families of Uvalde?
Chairwoman Maloney, these acts are committed by murderers. The murderers are responsible.
Reclaiming my client. Mr. Killoy, how about you? Will you apologize?
Congresswoman, with all due respect, while as I grieve like all Americans at these tragic incidences, again, to blame the firearm, the particular firearm in use here that we're talking about, modern sporting rifles,
Thank you.
to blame the firearm as an inanimate object.
David, you've spent years now listening to that. What is your reaction to that?
Like, it's so frustrating. It's like saying it's not the smoker, it's the cigarette, or vice versa. It's ridiculous. These companies have just as much of a role in gun violence as Big Tobacco did in perpetuating lung cancer and the epidemic of smoking in this country. As Americans, we need to take a similar approach that is public health based and focuses on addressing this issue on a bipartisan basis. Look, Lawrence, I've said this many times before on your show, and I know it to be true, and it becomes more and more true every day. Americans are fed up and exhausted of having to hear this on TV. Republicans, Democrats, gun owners, and non-gun owners. My father's a gun owner. My father's a former Republican. I have many family members that are as well. I can tell you from conversations I've had with them and Republicans across the country and gun owners, none of them want this issue to continue. These gun companies and the NRA do not represent gun owners or Republicans any more than the smoking industry represented the interests of smokers in the first place. We have to work together to address this issue. And I wanted to say one last thing, which is that it's deeply frustrating when, I interrupted the House Judiciary Committee hearing the other day when there were the same talking points being reiterated by Republican congressmen, as were said by the shooter in El Paso, for example, about a quote-unquote Hispanic invasion happening in the United States. It is deeply frustrating when I'm doing that and I'm trying to put up a good fight and we don't have Democrats that fight for us the same way Republicans fight for their own side. Because right now, House Democrats just shelved a plan to pass an assault weapons ban within the House and said, let's come back to it in August. That's not going to happen. We need to demand that House leadership makes good on their promises to families and brings this to a vote before they leave for recess on Friday. Because what they are voting on is how to save big cats, but they aren't voting on how to save our kids from assault weapons, and that is despicable.